Welcome to Bible Believers Fellowship in the ministry of bbfohio.com as we conclude our study by Brother Stephen Miller titled With a Question, Should Christians Own and Carry Weapons of Any Kind? This is part 2 of 2.
1,000 years. How did that happen? Because God threw the devil in jail. He used force to bring peace. He might makes right, not so much, but God's might makes right. Okay, so God's might threw the devil in jail for 1,000 years, and we have God bringing peace. There's the kingdom reign, and obviously there was rebellion and all that kind of stuff during that time, but there towards the end we get rebellion. So go to that brings into context, actually, go to Matthew 10, verse 34. So remember, Jesus is a God of peace, and he takes the devil and he throws him into jail there for 1,000 years. And then after that, he's loosed a little season, and then he's finally, the devil and hell and everything is cast into the bottomless pit, or not the bottomless pit, but cast into the lake of fire, where it's burning forever and ever, and then finally we have peace. That's all through the might and the force and the overwhelming firepower of Jesus Christ. Jesus, when he comes back, he's not coming back as a little baby. Amen. Okay, he's coming back with firepower. He's coming back with the word. He's coming back with the sword. He's coming back and he's going to destroy everything that is evil and everything that is sinful, and every person, every angel, every devil that ever stood against him, and that stands against him. If you don't repent, you will be destroyed. If you don't repent and trust on Christ, you will be destroyed. So go to Matthew 10, but just keep in mind your soul will live forever. So your body will be destroyed, your spirit will be destroyed, but you'll know that you're living there and burning forever. You'll feel it. So, Matthew 10:34 says, "Think," this is Jesus talking, "think not that I am come to send peace on earth. I have come not to send peace, but the sword." Okay, and he brings in his kingdom, and he establishes a kingdom with force and with a sword. Okay, he throws the devil into the bottomless pit. The devil doesn't go nicely. He actually takes him and puts him in there. So we see that peace will only come at the end of the tribulation, and only by the overwhelming destructive power of Jesus Christ. So Jesus will destroy the devil. He will destroy the devil and his minions. So now that we know what peace is, we can look into the Bible and show examples of people failing to achieve peace and succeeding at peace. Okay, so we know that God, Jesus Christ himself, uses this doctrine of overwhelming force to get what he wants. God can just speak things into existence and speak things out of existence. So, and actually he conquers through speaking, but we actually have, Jesus using overwhelming force. So we're going to look to the Old Testament to see a couple examples. So in Romans 15:4 it says, "For whatsoever things were written aforetime were written for our learning." So we're going to see a couple of examples from the Old Testament for our learning. We're going to learn from example. This is a great concept for you young people. Learn from example. Don't learn from doing. Doing is very painful and destructive and expensive. Learn from example. So just learn from history. You should study history, see how people fail, and you'll be very scared and you'll never try anything in your life. But no, try things, and you're going to have to fail yourself. So failure is succeeding. So we're going to go to, we're going to see where King David runs from Saul. There's a little story in here. And if you go to 1 Samuel 21:8, we're going to do a quick little story on David. Now, where we're jumping into David's life is right after he was put on the run from Saul. And what happened was David made this pact with Jonathan, that's King Saul's son, and he made this pact, and Jonathan actually warned David that Saul, King Saul, the king of Israel, was going to kill David. King Saul wanted to kill David because Saul was jealous of David, because David was really good at what he did. He was really good at war. He was good at killing people. So it's a sad thing, but David, one of the greatest kings in the world, is the Bible, God calls him a bloody man. He has blood on his hands, and that's why he was allowed to build the temple. It was left up to his son to build this temple because David was a warrior. He fought, and he fought better than Saul, and Saul was jealous. So 1 Samuel 21:8, if I can find it. 1 Samuel 21:8, and we're jumping in this story where David's on the run, and David is he's just alone. David's alone, and he's going to go to a tabernacle. I think it's a tabernacle, and he's going to go there for refuge. He's going to go to a place of refuge. And so in 21:8 it says, and David said unto Ahimelech, and is there not here under thine hand spear or sword? For I have neither brought my sword nor my weapons with me, because the king's business required haste. And the priest said, the sword of Goliath the Philistine, who thou slewest in the valley of Eli, behold, here it is, wrapped in the cloth behind the ephod. If thou wilt take that, take it. For there is no other save that here. And David said, there is none like that, give it me. And then and David arose and fled that day for fear for Saul, and went to Achish the king of Gath. So David took the sword from the priest, the only sword the priest had, and then he kept on moving. He kept on the run from Saul, from King Saul. Okay, so skip ahead to 22:11. Right. Yeah. Okay, so we'll go ahead and skip to 22:11, and this is where King Saul is going to confront the priest, the man of God. So you have a priest who is the man of God, and he's basically innocent in all of this. He questions David a little bit, and something seems funny with him, but then David reassures him and basically lies to his face and steals his sword. And then we have the innocent man of God, and he's confronted by King Saul. So what happened was, once David fled, there was a guy there, and at where the priest was living. And what happened was the guy then went back to Saul and told the king, "Hey, David was with this guy, was with this priest, and they were conspiring against you." And there was David there, and he gave David a weapon. And then so what happened was Saul says to this guy, "Okay, well, bring the priest to me." And so the priest comes, and all the people, they come to Saul, and Saul then confronts the priest and says, and he wants to know where David is. He wants to know, why did you give him a weapon? He wants to, he's questioning the priest. And so in verse 11 it says, then the king sent to call Ahimelech the priest and the son of Ahitub, and all his father's house, the priests that were at Nob, and they came, all them, to the king. And Saul said, Hear now, thou son of Ahitub. And he answered, Here I am, my lord. And Saul said unto him, Why have ye conspired against me, thou and the son of Jesse, in that thou hast given him bread? Because he gave him food also, this priest did. Thou hast given him bread and a sword, and hast inquired of the Lord for him. So the priest prayed for him. We didn't get into that, but he inquired of the Lord for him, that he should rise against me to lie in wait as at this day. And Ahimelech answered the king and said, And who is so faithful among all thy servants as David? So the priest didn't understand. He says, well, who's so faithful among all thy priests, or among all thy servants as David, which is the king's son-in-law, and goeth at thy bidding, and is honorable to thine honorable in thine house. Did I then begin to inquire of God for him? Be it far from me, let not the king impute anything unto his servant, nor to all the house of my father, for thy servant knew nothing of all this, less or more. And the king said, Thou shalt surely die. So Saul, by the witness of the priest is basically saying, I had no idea what was going on. And then Saul then goes and says, hey, you're going to die. You and your house, everybody's going to die. So at verse 17, it says, verse 17, Saul actually orders the killing of the man of God, the priest. He orders the killing of him. So verse 17, it says, And the king said unto the footmen that stood about him, Turn and slay the priests of the Lord, because their hand also is with David, and because they knew when he fled, and did not show it to me. But the servants of the king would not put forth their hand to fall upon the priests of the Lord. So the servants there, because they're Jews, they said, no, we're not going to kill the priests. It'd be kind of like the Marines saying, no, we're not going to kill this group of Americans over here. You know, the Marines probably wouldn't kill a whole bunch of Americans. You know, they wouldn't slaughter us. They probably wouldn't kill the clergy. So what is what is Saul going to do? Well, he just turns to his hired guns. So what happens is he turns to the outsiders. So yeah, he turns to the UN, and not literally, but eventually. So, and the king said to Doeg, Turn thou and fall upon the priests. And Doeg, the Edomite, not Israelite, Edomite, Doeg the Edomite turned, and he fell upon the priests, and slew that day 75 persons that did wear the linen ephod. And of course, you know the linen ephod, if you know your Old Testament law, what that is. So, and then not just that. If you read on, verse 19, it says, And Nob, the city of the priests, smote he with the edge of the sword, both men and women, children, sucklings, and oxen and asses and sheep with the edge of the sword. Every single one of them was killed because the king got angry. Every single one of them. Give me Gloria. Bring her up here. Bring her up here. Bring her up here. It was a great sermon illustration. So, little Gloria. So, you got to keep in mind. What did it say? It says, And Nob, I'm going to do this with my baby in my hands. And Nob, the city of the priests, smote he with the edge of the sword, both men, that's me, and women, that's my wife, children, that's my baby, and sucklings, that's my baby. Oxen, well, that could be my dog. Asses. That's obviously cats. Democrats, yeah. So nobody in Nob had a sword. You remember that. Keep that in mind. Okay, go back to chapter 21, verse 9. There, go back to the end. It says there at the end, in just right at the end there, it says, "For there is none other save that here." Talking about the sword. He only had one sword and he gave it away. I'll tell you what, you come into my house and ask for my gun and I've only got one, you better keep on trucking. You just run, because you ain't getting my gun. Don't ever lend your guns out. That's a biblical lesson right there. Don't ever lend anybody your guns. Don't ever do it. Don't ever do it. Don't get rid of your guns. Don't give them away. Hoard your guns. Because guess what? His baby died because of it. Okay? Nobody's going to kill my baby. That's not going to happen. Okay, so Saul murders every single man, woman, and child in the city of Nob. The babies also. They're a bunch of baby killers. Okay, you talk about what a baby killer is. It's this king here. And God warned him. God said, hey, this king, he can do anything he wants. He can take your women. He can take your children. He can do anything he wants. God warned him. So remember that, yep, we just went over that. So remember, these things were written for our learning, according to Romans, the New Testament. According to the New Testament, because we'll get a whole bunch of complaints from hyper-dispensationalists. But according to the New Testament, in Romans 15:4, these things were written for our learning. Is this peace? There's no guns. There's no weapons. What? No, you can't. Go away. Oh, sure. Okay. Yes.
Before you're done with that, I want to mention one thing.
Sure.
Back in 1 Samuel 13, I just happened to read this today. I'm not a walking Bible encyclopedia, but I just happened to read this today. 1 Samuel 13, 19 through 23 shows that it was policy. This was a gun-controlled policy. The Philistines didn't allow Israel to make swords.
Oh.
Go back to 1 Samuel 13.
1 Samuel 13.
Verses 19 through 23.
Verses 19 through 23. 1 Samuel 13. So what Greg was saying, just so we can get on the recording, was that the policy of Saul, the king, the government policy,
what was forced on them by the occupying Philistines.
Which was forced on them by the Philistines, was to, it was a weapons control. Obviously, It wasn't gun control.
Yeah.
But at that time, the most powerful weapon in the land was the sword. Okay, obviously, the most powerful single combat weapon was the sword. So you could make an argument that slingshots were more deadly at range, but that's for another lesson. So
Yeah, 19 through 23.
19 through 23. Okay, so 19 through 23, it says, "Now there was no smith found throughout all the land of Israel, for the Philistines said, lest the Hebrews make them swords or spears, but all the Israelites went down to the Philistines to sharpen every man his shear and his coulter."
Yeah, like hand coulter.
Okay, his coulter, like Ann Coulter, and his axe and his mattock, which a mattock is really cool. I don't know if you guys ever owned one, but they're awesome. So, where was I? Mattock. Okay, yet they had a file. Oh, yet they had a file for the mattocks, and for the coulters, and for the forks, and for the axes, and to sharpen the goods. So is this saying is that the Israelites, they had a file?
Yeah. They were allowed to sharpen tools.
They were allowed to sharpen tools. Okay. All right. So it came to pass in the day of battle that there was neither sword nor spear found in the hand of any of the people that were with Saul and Jonathan, but with Saul and Jonathan, but with Saul and Jonathan, his son was there found.
They were the only two to have it.
Yeah, so the king and the king's son were the only two people to have weapons. And didn't they kill all the Philistines? eventually?
Well, eventually, yeah.
Eventually, so there was only 2 weapons there, but then they eventually destroyed the Philistines, pushed them in the sea.
This is while they were still
Yeah.
being occupied.
It's kind of like the Warsaw Ghetto.
Yeah.
It's like there were less than 40 guns in the Warsaw Ghetto at the beginning of the occupation, or at the beginning of the destruction of the ghetto. And then 6 months later, they were finally all killed, all the Jews. 6 months with 40 guns.
Yeah.
So they held out. Just imagine if they would have had I don't know, maybe a truckload of guns, maybe 1 for each person. How do you think they would have held out till the Russians arrived just a couple years later? Maybe
They would at least had a fighting chance.
they wouldn't have all just been slaughtered. The Warsaw Ghetto, I think, went down in 43. I think it was 43 or 42. The war ended just 3 years later. Maybe, so 6 months, 12 months. There were actually Japanese soldiers and stuff like that that held out for a lot longer. They had, against the United States. So anyway, that's beside the point. There are some radio hosts who would deny that Americans should have weapons because they wouldn't be able to hold out as long against the United States government. So the logic is because the United States government is so powerful that if they were to turn on the American people, we would have no fighting chance anyway, so why should we even have guns? That's their logic, which really should be the other way around. If the United States government is so powerful that they could turn on the American people and slaughter us like pigs, then the government shouldn't have guns, and we should have all the guns. It should be the other way around.
They are assuming that our military will turn with us.
Right.
Against.
Exactly, yeah, they're assuming, they're making assumptions that the Marines would kill the priests, and they wouldn't. So obviously we see from the Bible that, that the military are people just like us. So, they don't understand that. But so that's example number 1. We see this example of peace being made in the Bible through destructive force and the failing of men to defend their families. So go to, we're going to look at another story. We're going to look at Esther. Oh, I was going to write down what page number it was on, so now I got to look for it. Go to Esther chapter 3. Now, all of you know the story of Esther. It's a cool story, and one of the most famous things in Esther is that it never mentions God. So I think the name God or something like that. And but it's about a miracle. So it's about the hand of God moving through the Jewish people to save them from destruction. So now, if you haven't read the story of Esther, I suggest that you stop the tape right now, and if you're looking on the internet, and read all, was it 10 chapters? It's not very big. Just read through it real quick, and then come back and we'll start again. Okay? Because I don't have a lot of time to lead up to this thing. I got to buy a ladder in 15 minutes. I got to be in Hilliard in 15 minutes. So that's not going to happen. So what happens is there's these guys there is this man named Haman, and he gets slighted by a Jew because this Jew wouldn't bow to him. And then what happens is Haman wants to kill all the Jews because of that. He wants to kill this guy named Mordecai. And then also he wants to kill Mordecai's family, and he wants to kill Mordecai's children, and he wants to kill Mordecai's relatives, and he wants to kill Mordecai's people. And Haman's a really powerful man in the kingdom of Persia. Right? Persia? Yeah, Persia. So he's a really powerful man in the kingdom of Persia, the second to the king of Persia. And so he convinces the king of Persia to kill all the Jews. He actually appoints a day when all the Jews are going to be rounded up, and all their land is going to be taken, and all their stuff's going to be taken, and they're going to round up these guys and these Jews and just kill them, every man, woman, and child. And so we'll go to Esther 3:13, and what happens is this guy Haman, he deceives the king, and he gets this to happen. It says, and the letters were sent out by post into all the king's provinces to destroy, to kill, and to cause to perish all Jews, both young and old, little children and women, in one day, even upon the 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month Adar, and to take the spoil of them for a prey. Remember, it says to kill and to cause to perish all Jews, both young and old. That would be me and Greg. Little children. I'll let you figure out which one's young and which one's old. Little children, like my baby, like little Gloria. This is very personal. You have to understand. They want to kill your children. They want to kill Gloria. They want to kill Mariah. They want to kill Jenny. They want to kill every single one of you. Okay? They want to kill. That's what they do. That's what the world does. Remember what happened when God took peace? They all killed each other. They just want to kill. They're trying to do it with they're succeeding to do it with this whole abortion thing. They're killing children. Thank God that Hillary's not our president anymore. Amen. I don't like to get involved with politics and stuff like that, but the problem is if you don't, people die. It's life and death. If you have the wrong politics, people will die. If you have the wrong theology, people will die. If you vote for the wrong person, people will die. It's a matter of life and death. And we can see it in the Bible, and we can see it with the appointees that God help this country. Donald Trump is our president. Okay? That's how bad it's gotten. That Donald Trump is the greatest president we've had since Ronald Reagan. That's how bad it's gotten. He's a TV host. He's a not talk show. He's a reality TV host who made some money. That's all he is. More than most, yeah. But fortunately he's not smarter. Fortunately, he's dumb as a truckload of rocks, and he just does the right thing. So he just, when it comes to politics, I can't stand him as a person. You know, I don't know if you've met Donald Trump personally. I know people who know him, but he's not a great man. He's not a Christian. I don't think he's a Christian. He might have got saved. I don't know, but we don't know. Hopefully he did. But we're going to see where. Okay, so back to I digress. I have to buy a ladder in 12 minutes. So why am I so pro-gun? Why am I so pro-gun? Because I have a daughter and a wife. And if you touch my daughter, I'm going to kill you. That's in the Bible. Men are, we're supposed to provide for our family. That means provide shelter, provide food, provide safety. How do you provide safety for your little babies? You have to protect them from people who are going to kill them. Do you know, nowhere in the Bible does it say that we're supposed to be martyrs. Christians aren't commanded to go die. We're not. We're not commanded to go die. But we're given biblical principles, like here in Esther, about how to survive. And we're allowed to survive. We're allowed self-defense. So we can see that after 5 chapters of absolute idiocy on the part of everybody in the book of Esther, finally a dirty Jew stands up and says, no more. No more. Go to Esther chapter 8. We're not gonna let these guys come in here and push us around anymore. So finally, Mordecai, he finally gets into power through the hand of God. He finally gets put into power, and he commands that the Jews defend themselves. So there you can read it in chapter. I'm not going to read it, but it's in chapter 8. Mordecai commands that they'll defend themselves, and the Jews defended themselves. They defended themselves there in chapter 9.